always excited about. We have a big announcement tonight. I don't know if anybody saw, oh, what did Cheyenne just say? We were talking about our favorite worship songs. I love
Stars.
even if, oh, Scars in Heaven. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. But yeah, we have a big announcement. I don't know if anybody saw my post today on our Kick Cancer stories, but we have some exciting things, big changes happening over at Kick Cancer, which we're so excited to talk about. But we're going to leave you hanging. You got to wait till the end to hear all of our, I'm going to spill some tea, spill some of Susan Johnson's tea. But we are so excited tonight, guys, because we have Dr. Charles Penick here, who's, speaking of Susan Johnson, Dr. Penick is Susan's brother-in-law, which is so funny. I knew who you were and followed you and everything. And I think I'd been at Kick Cancer for like 6 or 7 months before I put two and two together. I mean, she always refers to you as Dr. Penick, so I never knew. So it's so funny. She's always so respectful.
Well, not always. There's definitely times where she's like, man, I need to stop calling him Charles.
Well, she's gotten better about it, clearly, because
She
I've
had.
always heard her refer to him as Dr. Penick. But
That's
anyways,
fun.
tonight's topic is I feel like we can get in the trenches here. So we may put you on the spot. Because there have been in a year and a half that I've been here, one of the things that I have heard a lot about is the pushback that we get from oncology teams. And sometimes it just doesn't make sense, and it's so hard. And we've talked a lot about it a lot here on these calls, where it's like, if it's helping, why are they giving us so much pushback on it? Like,
Mhm.
it doesn't make sense. And so Dr. Pennick's here tonight to kind of help us shine some light on that, some of the frustrating moments. So we're a pretty small crew tonight. There's 12 of us. More people will pop in, I'm sure, but feel free to come off mute and ask questions if you have them. But this is a safe place. So all those burning questions, bring them up. So anyways, I'm going to hand things over to Shannon. As you all know, well, maybe you don't. Shannon, I'll introduce Shannon's because some of you guys are new, but Shannon Scheller is one of our amazing board members. She's also handles our social media. She does so much for this community and specifically for Kick Cancer. So I'm going to hand things over to her. She can tell a little bit of her story. But for those who don't know me, I'm Dana Hinton. I am the executive director over here at Kick Cancer. And I'm the behind the scenes person most of the time until I'm not. And then next month, I'm so excited because we actually just added an additional person to our team. Her name's M. Doyle, and she is lovely. She's from Australia, so she has this like beautiful Australian accent that we all love listening to. But she's going to join us next month. So next month, you guys get to meet our newest Kick Cancer member. But with that, Shannon, I'll hand it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Dana. And we are so thankful for Dana and all the back end work that she has done to save us. So thank you, Dana. I'm another Kick Cancer. I'm a cancer mama. Kick Cancer mama at heart, because it was the first foundation, nonprofit, and that really came behind us and supported us. It was really what I was looking for to support Paisley. I just knew that there had to be more than what they were saying. And so Paisley is actually coming up on 8 years cancer free in April, which is crazy because sometimes it feels like yesterday and sometimes it feels like it was forever ago. But I knew from the very beginning that I wanted to go back to school and learn all the things that Susan was able to teach us so that I could continue to teach that to my child as she grows and ages, so that hopefully she can learn how to take care of herself at a foundational level. But yeah, so meeting Dr. Charles Penick, he is literally probably my favorite white coat superhero. So I have enjoyed listening to him and his educational spiels as he's working alongside these childhood cancer families. He comes with an arsenal of knowledge, compassion, and just a groundbreaking approach to childhood cancer support, working alongside our founder, Susan Johnson, as they're pioneering the Thrive Through Cancer formula, which is really a holistic approach that's literally changing the game for these families. But he's also the voice behind the Prosper Well podcast. Did I say that correctly? I think so. Where he shares his wealth of knowledge on functional medicine and just integrating the best of conventional medicine with holistic. So we thought that this would be just a fantastic opportunity to delve into the holistic approach to cancer treatment. I tried to come up with some thoughtful questions that could provide just a valuable insight for you guys that are seeking to support your child through treatment and even after, because this continues. Um, and just as we're aiming to reduce side effects from treatment and promote overall healing. So first of all, Dr. Penick, um, just thank you again for being here. And if you could just pretend that we're all naive and just break down really quick, what is functional medicine approach? And why, how is that different to like traditional oncology? How-
Yes. Okay. Certainly. Thank you, Shannon, for the introduction. I appreciate that. Um, you know, I would say the general premise is when we look at conventional medicine, it's based off of what we call allopathic medicine. And allopathic, when you break down the word, means against the disease. And so that's exactly what you find is, okay, what's the strongest thing to have the best efficacy at killing off the disease, right? So, which was typically, we'll say that's symptoms, right? So if it's a headache, what's the medication that's going to take away the symptom? And in this case, if it's cancer, what's going to take away that symptom of cancer, right? But it's not necessarily looking at what's the underlying issues behind that. Why did the person develop the migraine? Why did they develop blood pressure? Why did they develop cancer in the first place? Because if you can chop it at the root, then what you're really doing is clearing a field for growing a new, healthy, beautiful garden, as opposed to it, chopping it where 5 years later you're worried about it coming back again. And so that I would say that's the fundamental difference. And you're trying to find things that work with the body in a way that it's not damaging the body's systems, the natural systems for detox, the natural systems for healing and repair. You're trying to find a way to work in coherence with those. And so not necessarily always easy to do. And there's no slam dunk and say, well, if they try this, particular remedy, then everyone's going to walk away, healed. We are all individuals. And I would say that's probably one additional principle is bioindividuality, is that we have to learn to listen to the person, listen to their body. How does it respond to the different treatments, as opposed to just pushing one particular drug because that's what the algorithm says, or that's what, the latest research shows that this is the thing that we're supposed to use for this cancer. And so, I think it means that it's a lot more personalized. And so that's the goal when we talk about coming from a more functional, integrative, natural approach is to working in concert with the body and not against it.
Yeah. I often hear seasons say the words like, if we just cut, burn, poison, we're not getting down to the root cause, right?
Mhm.
So thank you for explaining that though.
Certainly.
What would you say? Because one of the major pushbacks for sure is don't change what they're eating at all. Leave it to us. And I'm sure you have a list. You could probably write a book on how to support kids nutritionally. But if you were to just pick top 3 things nutritionally
Yeah.
that people could start today, what would you say those top 3 would be?
That's a great question. I would suggest the first thing is really cutting off the sugar supply. It doesn't mean absolutely no sugar, but we as Americans, and honestly the world at this point really overconsumes sugar. If we were to go back, 1,000 or 2,000 years and look at various cultures and the amount of sugar they consumed relative to what we do nowadays, especially processed sugar, not natural sugar that's found in like fruit or honey, things like that. It is vastly different as far as an increase. And then we look at artificial sweeteners, and we look at high fructose corn syrup, and then it's in everything. It's in well, it's just ketchup. That's a vegetable, yeah, but it's loaded with sugar. So they find a way to put it in everything, and of course kids are going to naturally gravitate towards something that's sweet. And so I would say that's probably one of the top, because of the fact that we know that it actually feeds bad microbes, it feeds cancer cells, it disrupts the gut, and even it changes our neurochemistry as well. I don't know if anyone ever here has tried to go without any sugar for several days. But it's not easy. The time I did it, I remember my wife was trying to wean me off of how much sugar I was having, and she said absolutely no sugar. I was like, I can't do that. This is no way. I was like, you mean no fruit either? She was like, no fruit. And I was like, okay, you're crazy. Fruit isn't good for you. It's like I have to have a piece of fruit, but I just couldn't wrap my head around not having anything sweet at all. And by day 3, I was like jittery. I was irritable. It was like literally I was like having drug withdrawals, you know? And so it's something that I think we often don't put enough weight on how important that piece can be, in finding a more healthy balance with that. And by, if we look at the juxtaposition of the conventional system, having been in the hospital with Kicker, when he was diagnosed, we would see them recommend the kids, drink frappuccinos before they had their spinal infusion, or before getting a poke, let's just give them a soda, or there's a candy cart that comes around and they can grab Skittles or chocolate bars, and there's no thought whatsoever given to that. And I think what's the most appalling part about it is that all the science shows the correlation, and they're completely ignoring that. And they're always, the slogan you often hear is trust the science or evidence-based medicine. It's like, well, well, let's take a look at the science, right? So that's one big one that I would say. And one really cool thing that I witnessed in this last year with the Thrive Through Cancer formula was one of the moms who's a lawyer spoke with her doctor, her oncologist, and said, what can we do to change that in this hospital? And she's worked with 2 hospitals in the Florida area to completely change their nutrition program and pull the junk out of it and stop bringing carts around full of sugary sweets to the kids and give them healthy options. And they brought in donors to do that and everything. So really cool. And it just shows that grassroots movements can make a big difference for kids who are otherwise not educated, or families who are not otherwise educated on that piece. So small things. I would say another one is seed oils. There are some people who believe that seed oils might be one of the biggest causes of chronic disease advancement in this century. And if we go back in time again, what you'll see is people use what was naturally available. So almost like if you can squeeze it and oil comes out, then that's natural, right? So churning butter, or compressing a nut that where the oil comes out, right? Things like that, as opposed to taking something like corn and doing a highly processed thing to bring oil out of it, or seeds that are actually not meant for human consumption, that were actually originally machinery oil as greasers, like rapeseed oil and canola oil and the likes of those. And we have the science to really show one of the reasons why is because when they are processed in a high heat, which most of these are processed in a high heat way of extraction, they are incredibly damaged and they become what's called oxidized. And what happens is then when we consume that, it causes a reaction that damages our cells. We've all heard the term of oxidative free radicals. Well, that just accelerates free radical damage in our body. So if you can consider the amount of these highly processed, highly refined, oxidative damaged oils that we are consuming on a daily basis, it certainly contributes to a massive amount of damaged cells. And research shows that it can take about 90 to 120 days for cells to repair from the damage of one meal cooked with seed oils. So it's pretty impressive when you think about it in that way. Our body is incredibly resilient, I'll put it that way. But we shouldn't be challenging a system that's already challenged with more issues like that, right? And then the last is just eat real food. And that's a slogan that I learned, with Weston A. Price Foundation. But the idea is like, just get away from all the highly refined processed stuff. So a lot of people have, kind of succumbed to, and we have done that, for sure, as parents of kids, just because it's organic doesn't mean that it's healthy for you, because you can highly process and refine something, and just because it wasn't sprayed with chemicals doesn't mean it's the way your body should be receiving it. And so try to get back to true, like real food that's cooked in your kitchen, or at least a kitchen that you know. Sometimes you may need to get, like, someone who can be a chef or can ship you meals, but it needs to be real food. And so I think we've become overly reliant on grabbing something off the shelf just because it's quick and it's easy, or they like it, and we don't think about the fact that it really is not the way that their body was designed to take and break down and absorb nutrients. So those would be three things I would say.
That's excellent. I was actually just talking about this with a friend, saying, you know what? Sometimes I just get tired of being in the kitchen all day doing dishes and cooking, but that's really kind of what whole foods and eating that way looks like. And I'll still go down the aisle every now and then and be like, well, maybe they found a good way to make this in a box, right? And so I'll head for the ingredients and just be like, oh, come on, like, okay. So it is really disappointing. I'm hoping that there will be change in the future of what companies are allowed to put in there and what they're not, but I'm not holding my breath. We'll see. So
Certainly.
so we have discussed gut health before with Mark from Raw Farms Dairy. If you've missed that, you can catch that on our YouTube channel. But can you share your insights on the role of gut health in cancer treatment and how families can support a healthy microbiome in their child?
Yes, certainly. Well, if you think about a very simplistic model of our body being like a donut, so there's one hole and another hole, and there's like a tube it goes through, right? And whatever hits your body first, it is going to react with the inside of that tube and the outside of that tube, right? So that's what you put on your skin, but the most absorbative surface is the mucosal lining, which starts with the mouth, goes down to the anus, and between that is where our immune system, it's either active and protective, or it's been overrun because of things that don't belong in there, and its immune system, the protective immune system, is starting to break down. And if you think about it, if someone that you don't know comes and knocks on your door or rings the doorbell, your brain is a little bit different level than if a close friend walks up and rings the doorbell, right? And so that's kind of where our body is doing, is constantly surveying. It's like, oh, I know you. Oh, I don't know you. Let's check this one out. But if that same person that you didn't know was at your back door, it would feel very different, right? And so what I'm getting at here is that is exactly what happens, is that these things come in and they literally slip through cracks, if you want to call it that, and that's what we call leaky gut. And they start to hijack the immune system, because then the body's like, wait a minute, how did you get into the bloodstream? You were never supposed to enter. You were supposed to leave through the exit hole, right? And so that's literally what happens. And then that triggers this massive immune response, which is what we call inflammation, right? And so inflammation creates the perfect environment in which cancer cells can grow. And so if we think about, and I'm not saying that is the cause, it is a contributor. And so, because there's so many different things, and that's another thing I can talk about, is the different things that we have that are pushing our bodies in the wrong direction, and how do we balance that back out. But I would suggest that the gut is definitely like a first line of defense, and so we do have to protect that, and that is through eating the things that are going to support a healthy gut or a healthy microbiome, supplementing where we need to, and a lot of the things that are toxic, or poor in nutritional value, will cause more inflammation in that arena. So
Yeah. I've never had anyone break it down just like that, but thank you for the visual. It was great. So as far as detox, okay, in our Kickstart kits, and if you have not got or applied for a Kickstart kit and you're on this call, we'll talk about that after this, and just make sure that we can send you one and support you and your family. But in our Kickstart kit, We supply Epsom salts for detox baths and castor oil and a flannel for castor oil packs. But what are some other effective detoxification practices for children with cancer? And yeah,
I
how
love that. Yeah, because sometimes we do overlean on, say, supplements, and that can be overwhelming for kids. And not to say that, through this journey, supplements is, I think, a very important piece, but remember that it's just a piece. And so I say it's a
I'm
very
gonna
important
ask
piece.
questions about that soon. So
Okay, yeah, for
about
sure.
supplements.
For sure. So I would say that other ways are, topical applications is really neat. So essential oils, you may have mentioned that already, but that's a huge one because it is a way of communicating with the body that also involves touch. And that's really cool, is to have the calming aspect of calming the nervous system down through a maternal or paternal touch, applying the oils to the body. It's really, really cool. There's a huge therapy that is outside of even the oil itself when you are talking about topical applications, if a parent is doing that, helping their child with that. But in addition to that, yeah, using different oils for different things, it's really cool. Like when you look at something like frankincense, just boswellia, and all the different things traditionally it has been used for, is a reason why I think is a reason why it was one of the things that was given to baby Jesus, and I think the value of it, it's pretty cool. Is a reason why they call it the king of oils, and because it is actually accentuates the effect of all other essential oils. So when it's used in combination with any other oil. So I just given that as an example of something that can be very healing, that doesn't require, swallowing a pill. Um, I would suggest that lymphatic massage, it's another one, it's another touch application, and it helps to open up detox pathways. And in Thrive Through Cancer Formula, we've talked a little bit about some of the ways that you can actually move lymph through this, just applying gentle touch in 6 areas. And I'll just give you a quick review. It's basically you would, instead of starting at the feet and working up, to where the lymphatic system dumps into the blood, you actually start from that area, which is the left kind of clavicle and neck area. And it's just gentle circular motion. So you're just going to move a little ways, rub, and you're almost, it's more like, think of it as like a tug on the skin in circular patterns. And then you're just moving along that area. And there's about 6 zones. So 1, 2, and then you can go down to the abdomen, go down to the groin area, and then down to the legs. Basically, you're spending about 1 to 2 minutes at each area, at each location. And the reason why you start here is because if there's stagnancy here and you're starting, say, at the feet going up to that area, then you're pushing lymph towards a stagnant area. So it's actually, you work the opposite way. And it's a very simple thing, but again, just 5 minutes while they're watching something, or while you're just sitting there talking with them, putting them to bed, right? It's something relatively easy to do. And so I think the hardest part is adding it into where it becomes a little bit more habit, because we're already often so overwhelmed with time that it literally, something has to become a habit, I think, to make it seem like it just goes with the day routine. Yeah, and there are many other ones. You can add oils to the bath. I like magnetic clay. So magnetic bentonite clay, or I think it's also called Millerite clay. And the company is Dead Sea Minerals. I'm blanking out on it right now. You could actually go onto Amazon and put in magnetic bentonite clay bath, and you'll see it's sourced from the Dead Sea. And I'm throwing this out there in part because what we have found is it can also be partially effective at pulling things, literally physical toxins, through the skin. I'll be a little bit, it may be a little bit unclear in the way I'm saying it, but also just because of this venue, I'm gonna just share the premise of it, is that there are so many things that are bombarding our systems right now that are not natural. There are some things that are toxins that are, maybe just through the earth and through the water and the food, but many of these things are not natural, and we're encountering more and more of those things being added to the environment in ways that we may not be aware of. And so one of the things that we found with this particular approach is that it literally can pull things through the skin that otherwise we wouldn't know are even present. And so I think this is a great thing for every person in the family to do, not just your child or daughter. Warm bath. Basically, you're going to put in about 3. Let me make sure I'm saying this right. 1, 2, yeah, 3 cups into a bath that goes up, is able to cover them up to the neck, or same for you. And you want to try to soak, and this is the harder part about it for a child. But if you get as much time as you can, but the goal is about 40 minutes. I don't think a child is going to sit in a bath for 40 minutes unless they're distracted. So maybe you give them something to play with, or that's a little bit of screen time for them. And so then this is it's interesting. I'm trying to figure out the best way to say it. So when they're done, you don't want to towel them off. You want to drip dry, and you're going to get a black light. Okay, so you need to order a black light if you don't have one, and you're going to scan the body in that black light, and you're going to see if you see anything that looks like a hair strand. And I advise getting like tweezers, and just pick that off and put them into a plastic bag if you see anything like that. Now remember, you didn't towel them off, so they shouldn't have any like hair strands or anything on them. They shouldn't. It looks maybe more like almost like a towel fiber, or something like that, or a lint fiber. And I found one on the bottom of my foot. I will mention this, that it seems to move of its own accord. So it's very interesting. And there are other people who have done this experiment. And
What is it? What is it? I had to come off mute.
Parasite?
What is it?
For the parasite?
I think it is probably more along the class of synthetic parasites, probably, which is a whole another topic, and we probably won't go into that too much right now. But I don't believe it's natural, and I believe it clearly has a magnetic quality, because that's how it's drawn out of the body. And I believe it's made of certain metals that don't belong in the body, and so this helps to pull them out. That people have been acquiring more and more over the last 5 years. And I won't go too far down that, because I want this to be able to be shared. And so
Oh, I am fascinated. I actually, this last year, I started to put in the bentonite clay into all of our detox baths.
yes,
Um, and because we've continued to do it over the 8 years. It's just because
okay,
I know that anyways. But I've never done the black light thing,
yeah,
or how do you talk them into that? Do you tell them it's like a dance party, like black
yeah,
light, woo, woo? Like, I
yeah.
don't know, like how you do that, but
Right? They're like, what is going on? Yeah, just
why are you, what's this weird light, mom? I don't know.
exactly, right?
Oh,
Um, and I would say, I think the key though is it's not just bentonite clay, it's got to be the magnetic bentonite clay. So which comes from the Dead Sea, is my understanding. And there may be other places it comes from. That's the source that I've gotten. So yeah, try that out and see what you find. It might be worth, just the idea is that we're trying to bring anything out of the body that does not belong, that is not natural. And when we talk about some of these toxic inputs, of course, poor nutrition, we've already addressed, that as an idea of that's an arena that we need to make sure we're focusing on. That's not just what we don't want to go into the body. That's also making sure the things that belong in the body are there: the trace minerals, the fat soluble vitamins and essential fatty acids, all the different building blocks that are essential for a healthy brain and a healthy body, right? So that's the other side of that coin. We also want to remove the heavy metals, the chemicals, the mold, right? These are things that need to be done. Now, timing is a big piece. I'm throwing this out there. A lot of this is talking about preventative. When we are in the course of treatment for kids, sometimes doing those things can be overwhelming for their system. So it needs to be done in a way that you have someone who can walk them through that journey and say, this is something we can add on. This is something we're going to wait, because their body's not ready for it just yet, right? And so, but I will say that is a big reason why we are seeing such an uptick in cancer diagnoses, is because of all these different inputs coming into the body, and we've got to find a way to make sure that they also leave, and then also setting up protective barriers so that they have less access to our body. Another one, one of the ones I just mentioned would be like artificial things that would fall into the area of toxins. And then harmful frequencies or unnatural frequencies. That's a big one. Smart meters I'll encourage you, if you happen to have a smart meter on your home, try to do your best to see if you can opt out. Though there's many documentaries on this, there's books on this. People who have gotten, people who live in apartments, it's the most difficult because sometimes what they'll have is a wall of literally smart meters. And so that much energy concentrated in that space can cause a number of different issues that people may be dealing with. And so your body, think of it as this, your body has so much reserve. And if it's now trying to focus energy on protecting you from this, and then protecting you from that, and then protecting you from that, at some point, if you're adding on more things to the plate, it's going to be overwhelmed. And then that thing that's been trying to take off and grow in the body because of whatever, because of a negative emotion that never got processed, because of toxins that never left, because of microbes, parasites is huge. I could talk a whole bunch about that. There's a huge connection between parasites and cancer. Right now, your body's been doing a decent job at keeping those things at bay, but now because of, there's one other thing added to your plate, then it's like the pot boils over, and then the cascade begins. And so that's why it is important not to become OCD about these things, but to be aware and then take the steps. And it starts with baby steps because you don't want to be overwhelmed. But start with the baby steps. And then as you have more capacity, you're going to add on more things until you get to a place where it feels like routine for you to do. It's like, oh yeah, say for example, like there's a number of different things when it comes to EMS, but like we hardwired our house. Now, I'm not saying that all of you guys need to go out and hardwire a house. Should you? It's a consideration. Is your husband going to be supportive of that? I don't know. So because it's a lot less convenient, but the idea is that you're decreasing the amount of EMFs that when their body is resting at night, it's not being bombarded with these artificial frequencies constantly and having to work harder to heal and repair. And then the last one, and I didn't necessarily detail these out, I'll just recap really quick. What I was saying was really poor nutrition, toxins, which would be really heavy metals, chemicals, and mold toxins, mycotoxins, microbes, which would be viruses, bacteria, parasites, and mold would also go into that. We call it fungus when it's growing in the body, right? Like candida. And then the last I would say is really degrading emotions. So this is one that's probably the most insidious because it works its way into family systems without even knowing it, because there's angst between mom and dad. And so the way that mom talks to dad or dad talks to mom, it starts to eat away inside at the little one, or it's it's not feeling supported, or there's just not enough time. I'm sorry, I just don't have enough time. I don't have enough space right now. So go play it, go off and play, right? So it's often we don't realize that we can be facilitating negative emotions in that child without understanding it, because we are overwhelmed, or because we weren't given the tools with which to work when we're under pressure. And so because of that lack of tools, then they're actually receiving the brunt of it. And we're all guilty of it. I think every parent has been there, right? And so I think that is, in my opinion, I actually think that cancer starts at a vibrational frequency level. It doesn't start at a molecular level, on a physiologic level. I think it starts at a frequency level. And then from there, it grows until it hits the physical plane, and then it grows until it becomes something that can start to hijack the body's ability to kill it off. And so I say that because I feel like it is something that is not talked about enough. And it plays into all aspects of our health, not just cancer. It's everyone's health, I think, has a link in some way, shape, or form to the emotional and vibrational frequency plane. So I think if we were to say that, our body's like this system, and we have a background of genetics, which we were born with. And people say, well, that's a genetic cancer. It's like, well, it may have a genetic component or precursor, but it wasn't just the genes. It's because the genes received an input, right? And for some people, the input may not need to be nearly as high as the input for other people, but it received an input of one of those things that threw the body out of balance, and the body doesn't have the capacity to heal, restore, or repair it. And so from that, then we see cell damage and a lack of coherence, meaning one cell can't talk to another. It can't communicate. One organ system can't talk to another. Well, it's cloudy. And so then it doesn't have the ability to say, hey, where's the invader? Where's the bad guy? How do we get rid of it, right? There's a confusion. And then that's where a place where inflammation starts to develop, and then cancer will eventually thrive because it can protect itself. And interestingly enough, cancer cells, really, they're just aberrant cells that have, because they reached a place where the body should have nipped it early on, but now it's gotten to the place where it can develop a shield. The shield actually has a name. It's called ENOX2. It's a protein. Every cancer cell expresses it. And one really cool thing that you may hear me talk about, if you know, like in like Thrive Through Cancer formula, for example, is that particular protein can be broken down by something called catechins, which comes from green tea. It has to be a specific concentration. It has to be monitored, but it will break down that protein. When that protein is broken down, your immune system will devour that. And it doesn't matter what situation it is, actually. Sadly, sometimes when we don't have the control to be able to apply something like that tool, the person has to go on hospice first before they can go and get that sort of a treatment. But I want to just throw that out there, that it's a really cool thing that there's a researcher who's now passed away who discovered this. He should have really won a Nobel Prize for this discovery. He was not functional or integrative. He just was determined to find a cure for cancer, and he really did. It's I won't belabor the point on that, but the point is that these cells have now learned to shield themselves, and we have discovered ways to break down that shield. And then another thing is they've of course learned to replicate, right, and to invade and grow. And so we want to be able to figure out, how do we combat, how do we work, not necessarily, we're not working against it, we're really working to support the body's natural systems, right? And I know I'm talking a lot here, but at the end of the day, it's really through repairing those things that we mentioned already. So bring back in the healthy emotions, bring back in the good nutrition, bring back in all the things that, the way I say it is, all the things that were in the Garden of Eden, is the way I picture it in my mind. When you looked up and there was light, and there was someone next to you, and you could reach out and touch them, and your feet touched the bare ground, and you could get herbs from the garden, or fruit from a tree. The water was pure, and the air you breathed was oxygen rich, right? So how do we bring those things back into our daily life so that our body has all the nutrients, all the things that it needs to repair, just like it was given in a world without sickness and disease? So
Yeah, that was so much to unpack there, but I continue, just even the word frequencies sits with me, and whether it's good or bad. Um, do you guys even, who has a smart meter, or who has analog? Does anybody even know the difference? So if you still have a smart meter, put it in the chat. Like, let's just be real here, because at our old house, I had it switched out. So during cancer treatment, we had it switched out, and it then was $75 to switch it out, and they were going to increase our payment $10 a month at that time, to have someone come out and read it. And he was actually really upset about it. He did not. I know he was sent to my door to completely talk me out of it and tell me that I was cuckoo, until he asked me, why are you doing this? And I told him, I'm like, my daughter's in cancer treatment. And he's like, I'll get that changed right out. And I'm like, okay. So looked it up. It's $50 in Phoenix. Okay. And smart meter in Wisconsin, they don't give the option to opt out. See, now that stinks.
Mhm.
That's when it's tough, and that's when you say, okay, well, where is the smart meter on the house? Let's make sure the bed is away from that
Yeah.
wall, as far away from that area as possible.
Yes.
But the biggest thing, and because I always love finding therapies that are cost effective for families and easy to do. So when you talked about touch therapy, that just sat with me, sat with my spirit, and the mama bears in us all, because I had never been so busy in my life than when my kid was going through cancer treatment, just constantly researching all the appointments, the supplements, the detoxing, the cooking more, the everything else, that you almost forget that the most important thing you can do with your kid is sit with them, cuddle them longer, kiss those cheeks more, and be that positive touch in their life right now, because they have so much negative touch that's happening, and pokes and prods and forcing them to do things that they don't want to. Just sit with them, cuddle them that extra 10 minutes, and just be like, okay, dinner can wait, right? So I love the fact that you brought up touch therapy, and even including some of that in. If you can't even think about essential oils, fine, just doing that. But yes, if you want to throw in a massage or something else. But thank you for bringing that up, Dr. Penick. That was awesome. I forgot where I was. Like, what's my next question? I don't know. Okay, so let's see. Oh, we're at supplements. So thoughts on use of supplements and herbs through cancer treatment, or maybe even some to avoid. So I know there's a lot of talk of different things. And so what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I from a philosophical standpoint, I strongly feel that it's actually not worth worrying about too much. If I will tell people this, if it helps you sleep better at night, then okay, great. I'm not gonna take that supplement because I've heard bad things about that supplement in this situation. I strongly feel that that herb or supplement is not going to hijack the system and feed the cancer and get your body to a place where it can't deal with what's happening there, or it's not going to snuff out. This is what we run into sometimes is people say, well, the oncologist will say that that is going to basically render the chemotherapy ineffective. Now, here's my thing. A lot of them do work off of oxidation methods. So then something like a high dose vitamin C would be counterproductive to that. But you have to take a lot of vitamin C to reach that threshold. So giving your child 500 to 1500 milligrams of vitamin C is not going to render the chemotherapy unsuccessful. The thing is, we don't learn that stuff in medical school. They don't teach us, honestly, how to use supplements in conjunction with conventional therapies. We don't understand the interaction. So it's just usually a blanket statement of no because I don't know, right? That's kind of really what it comes down to. And so what I would suggest is that the most important thing, and I'll tell clients this, is like just you want to be able to sleep at night. So give yourself peace, right? So do an internal gut check. And if you're like, you know what, I feel comfortable moving forward with it, go for it. If you don't need it, then don't say, well, I have to put this on. Like I got to give my child glutathione because that's what I've heard. But maybe that's not necessary right now. And that's why it's good. I think really, we always advise working with someone who can work with your child on an individual basis, because there are some people who are going to need something for a time that it doesn't fit another kid. Maybe they're even dealing with the same cancer. It has to do with their body and where their body is at in their journey at that time. Glutathione is one that you'll hear talked about. If I give my kid, too much glutathione, is it actually potentially harming them? Is it turning on the glutamate pathway? Or if I give them something that has glutamine in it, is that going to be damaging to them? And I'm not saying that those things may not have a stimulating effect, because they are that particular amino acid that I just mentioned does have growth potential, but so does testosterone, and so does thyroid, and so does other things that it requires. Our body is required to operate from a day-to-day standpoint. And so the way I think about it is, if that's in something that we're taking that is beneficial for the body, I particularly don't worry about it. But I wouldn't also necessarily go out and seek taking it like at high doses either, right? And the analogy that I use is, often when we're talking about supplements, we're really talking about working on the plane of like a garden hose to put out maybe like a campfire, or to water a garden or something like that. And this would be when we're talking about conventional drugs, often it's literally they're like hooking up a hose to a fire hydrant, and you don't want to use that to water your garden. It's not doesn't work out very well. And so what I'm getting at here is that taking a supplement is not going to dampen the fire hose. Now, there's a time you need a fire hose. When you need a fire hose, when the house is on fire. And so this is an example when we see someone who is in chemotherapy treatment, the house is on fire. And so that is one method. I'm not saying it's the only method or necessarily that it is the right method, but it is the method that we have here in the United States, right? But it is a way to put out the house that is on the fire out that is going on in the house, so the house doesn't burn down. And so you know, I don't feel like taking a supplement is going to turn off the fire hydrant, right? Whereas it may affect the fire, the water, the garden hose, right? Because there's a vast difference in the amount of pressure, right? And so that's the way I think of it. I think often sometimes we can get a little bit too nitpicky about some of the supplements. This is just my personal opinion about some of the supplements. And so, well, I shouldn't do this or should I do that? And then we start to work ourselves up into, well, this person recommended this, but then I read this over here, and then I heard this person say this on social media. And my advice is don't worry about it. Honestly, if you feel like it's something that may be beneficial, go ahead and give it, because I don't believe it's going to turn on or off the difference, the outcome that you're looking for. But if you don't have peace about giving it, then don't give it. So really, in my opinion, it's more of a gut check. I don't believe that whether you do or don't will actually change the long-term outcome.
I was able to listen to, like, I think it was an hour that you had talked about genetics and specifically MTHFR. And I was all in it because Paisley has like all the mutations, and then the GSTP1 and the COMT and all the things. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So really, like, this is something that you can go in depth in for sure if you wanted to, but just asking you in kind of a brief question, like, why would it be important for parents to test to see if their kid has MTHFR, and maybe how to support them?
Yeah, I think it can be a really neat tool because honestly, it gives you a picture of the canvas that they were given from birth, and you will carry with them throughout the rest of their life. You can change the way that genes express, and that is the beautiful aspect of knowing it. I suppose if you couldn't change the way they express or modulate the effect that they have on you, it wouldn't be worth testing. So what's beautiful about knowing it is then you can say, okay, I understand that from a genetic standpoint, I don't clear toxins very well. So what I want to do is support those pathways. So if it's MTHFR, I want to gently support methylation pathways. I say gently because sometimes people are being given a quite high doses of methylation, and some people can handle it okay, but some people can't. And so often we need to work with that person and figure out what's the right dosing. And so because something may have 8,000 or 10,000 daily percent value of methylcobalamin, and maybe they only need to have like 50 or 100% of the daily value, you know? And so I'm just showing that out as we need to figure out where that person is. But we do want to make sure that we are supplementing in a way that can provide the person with more factors that can balance out where there's a deficit genetically. So the three main ways that we detox, the main pathways are methylation, which is the most talked about. MTHFR deals with the methylation pathway, sulfation, and glucuronidation. And really, those are basically the way I think of it. And this is probably a very simplistic way, is like, it's like the stamp that goes on the package that says it's actually supposed to go to the dump rather than to ship out to the supplies, you know? And so it's literally like, this is waste, right? It needs to leave, or this is toxic, it needs to leave. And so I think of like methylation, methyl group is a carbon and 3 hydrogens. I almost think of it as like stamping it with that to say it's time to go. So again, it's a very simplistic view, but I think it helps us understand the importance of having enough of that. So what if you run out of stamps? Like, well, that's not leaving then, it's just going to stay in here, right? So that's kind of the way that it works. So making sure those pathways are open for that to actually leave, and making sure you have enough of the supply to actually to tag it for excretion is the way I think of it. So.
And I'm continually astounded at the fact that oncologists are not prepped with making sure that detoxification pathways are open.
Mhm.
They're not testing this on kids when they are dousing them in poison and
Mhm.
radiation and all this other stuff. It's like, what? I don't understand how you're not like schooled on that and support the kids this way. And
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah. I
um,
would, it would be amazing to see there's so many amazing, like well-meaning oncologists out there who really truly care. They haven't, been burnt out to the point where they're just, clocking in and clocking out, so to speak. And I've been so impressed with some of the interaction that some of the parents have had with some of their oncologists. I just wish that they were given the tools, or I think sometimes they're so driven so hard, it may pique their interest for a minute, but they're like, I just don't have the time to research it. I don't have the time to research, detox pathways. I don't have the time to research genetics. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
so it's a system. It's designed that way on purpose. I won't go down that rabbit hole in this talk, but it's designed that way on purpose. And unfortunately, that's going to have to change. Like we have to, and it's really going to be because we demand more, meaning you hold your practitioner accountable, your oncologist accountable, and say, here's the research, and that's what some of these parents have done. And then they're like, well, yeah, I guess you're right. Like either that, or they take they choose to take the arrogant route and say, I don't care, I'm the doctor, this is what we're gonna do. But the good ones will say, yeah, you're right. You showed me the research. You're not just, listening to someone on YouTube or whatever and doing this. You've actually gone back and done your research, or you've pulled down some articles. And like I can't argue with this. And we've had parents do that once they've gone in and said, okay, I'm going to research a little bit more and I'm going to present it. And it would be really cool. I mean, maybe this will be something down the road with Kit Cancer, that we compile a resource list like that, where parents can go into the data bank and like download an article on such and such with the common issues. So
Yes, I would love to do that. And I was kind of snickering over here because I was imagining like in a few years, oncologists in the lunchroom joining together, being like, who is this Susan Johnson and Dr. Charles Penick that are just telling our parents all these things? Like they're making us research and work harder. So, because I will tell you, 8 years ago, the first oncologist that we had turned her nose up at me so hard and laughed at me. And then we ended up getting a new oncologist who I gave the same list to, and she did her due diligence and she did her research to see if there was any contraindications. And she came back to me and she goes, "You're all good, mamas." I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time. Whereas the other one was just like, no, don't do any of this. You can't do this. You can't take that. And she just unfortunately did not want to take the time to
Mhm.
research
Mhm.
it. And
Mhm.
so to that, I say, find a new one.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I do. I imagine them going, who's this Dr. Penick?
What is this Kit Cancer?
Yeah, what is this? Why are they questioning me? They're making me research things. Um,
Yeah.
okay. So one of the big questions that even as a nonprofit on social media, there's so many times that we can't really direct some of these questions specifically online, which is what are the specific protocols or how I can support my kid before and after a procedure like sedation, radiation, MRIs. What can
Mm.
I do to support them to help them get through those?
I love that. That's a great one. So with the radiation, it's really cool. We have great anecdotal evidence, and probably beyond anecdotal, actually, with the Chernobyl event. This is at least the narrative that we read, and we read in the research. What was used was something called fucoidin, and it's actually an algae, and it absorbs the radioactive harmful radiation. And so it was incredibly useful apparently after that radioactive event. And you can prep the body in advance by taking fucoid. The brand that I recommend is called Bio Superfood, and I don't think that's the name of the company, that's just the name of the product. F3 biosuperfood is the most potent, and it's not something you would need to take on a daily basis. F1 is more so made for kind of a daily supplement to help with harmful rays, harmful radiation. Maybe if you live in a place where you can't turn off your smart meter. There are other mitigations you can do for EMFs as well. Maybe at a future talk, you know, we could delve down that path. But this is a supplement you could take to internally help protect. I also understand, my understanding is that chaga mushroom also is very helpful in protecting against radiation as well. So those are great ones that are specific to radiation. In addition, carnosine. L-carnitine is often talked about, but carnosine actually is another one that helps to absorb or help protect against free radical damage. And it's usually nitrogen radical damage, not oxidative, when it comes from harmful materials like radioactive materials and EMFs, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe the radioactive materials may be oxidative as well, but I think nitrogen is the big one that we see with the harmful EMFs, like 5G, for example. And so anyway, carnosine can be helpful for that as well. And then I would suggest that gentle doses of glutathione and vitamin C. So vitamin C, you know, depending on the age of the child, somewhere between 5 and 1,500 milligrams it's not going to do anything negative to the treatment that someone is doing. You really need massive amounts. So when we give IV vitamin C to help break down cancer in an integrative way, that clinics that do that, I would say you're talking about 50 grams to 100 grams. Like that's as compared to 1 gram. 1,000 milligrams is 1 gram, right? So you can see the vast difference. But you can give them at those doses, it still has some protective effect against oxidative free radical damage. And so again, that's another thing that helps protect the cells as you're going through some of these treatments where there may have to be some dye, or maybe there's some, you know, there's a MRI is fine. Magnetic resonance imaging, there is no, the magnetic resonance imaging has no ionizing radiation. But CT, which is often the modality that's used, it does. The problem with the MRI is usually the fact that they're using a heavy metal contrast. And so that's when you really want to be supporting the body's drainage pathways. That's where I like things like Pekana, which we've talked about in the past, Shannon, on Thrive Through Cancer calls, because Pekana is a neat drainage remedy triad, Pekana. And it comes with a liver support, a kidney support, and a lymphatic drainage support. And the kidneys are the things that are the most harmed by gadolinium, which is usually the contrast of choice. Or there are other heavy metal contrasts that may be used in substitute for that. But kidneys bear the brunt of it because it has to filter through the kidneys to get out. So let's see, I'm forgetting the name because they are Latin names, but it starts with R. I think it's Renat, R-E-N-A-T, is the Pekana remedy that covers the kidneys. So I'll throw that out there. That's another really good one. And like I said, moderate doses of glutathione can also be helpful pre and post. If they do have to take a heavy metal contrast agent, I highly recommend starting immediately after the treatment and then continuing for at least the next couple of weeks. I would make sure that they're taking a good binder. That's usually, my favorite is GI Detox and Ultra Binder, that they're very similar in their formulation. Ultra Binder is Quicksilver. GI Detox is by Biocide and Botanicals. The goal is that that's going to go into the bloodstream and try to grab onto things that you don't want settling into the tissues, right? So you want to start immediately after and then continue that at least for the next 2 to 3 weeks, I'd recommend.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Yeah.
That's been amazing. I do want to open this up to anyone who's still on the call. If you have a question that you really want to ask Dr. Penick while he's still on here, you can unmute yourself. You can turn your camera on. You can type it in the chat if you don't want to talk. I don't know if there's any other questions in the chat. Obviously, I've been missing the chat for a little bit, so hopefully Dana was on top of that. I was not paying attention. I was like, Dr. Charles Penick, I'm listening. So, I totally missed the chat. I'm sorry. Because while you guys if you're going to ask a question, I know that we were also going to talk about some different things and where cancer is going, but we also want to honor Dr. Penick's time. So if you have those questions, wait a second.
This is Shelly. I have a question.
Hi,
Yeah,
Shelly.
go ahead, Shelly.
Hey, my 7-year-old is in treatment for acute lymphoblastic leukemia. We've definitely taken an integrative approach, but unfortunately our hospital doesn't support it. So it's been very much offline and guided by mom and dad here. But he's doing awesome. And in fact, he's doing so well that we get pushback saying he looks too good. We don't believe you're taking the meds. They give us a hard time and they keep raising doses because he's not responding as they'd expect. And we keep saying he's not responding because we're doing a hell of a job keeping his detox pathways open. We're using frequency medicine. We're doing a lot of things to keep him healthy despite what they're doing. And what do you say? Could there truly be outliers who just don't seem like they're taking their meds? Because that's us and they don't believe it and I can't find any research to support it.
Kicker went through this,
Yeah.
to be quite honest, and they actually threatened to double and then eventually threatened to triple his chemo because they felt
Yes.
like they weren't suppressing things the way they should. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's often outliers. Naturally, I think it's just because, like you said, you are supporting the body so that he looks and feels much more healthy. And so, my thought is keep doing what you're doing, mama. And, honestly, support his body. Even if they end up doubling, the chemo, what you are doing has already and will continue to set him up for future success. So, hopefully they don't go down that pathway. I also remember that kicker, and I think this is most kids are in like a randomized controlled trial that will put them into different treatment tracks. And they were hoping for the one that was the least aggressive, and it put him into a more aggressive. So it was kind of disheartening. But it's just cool to see how he's thriving now in spite of. So you have certain things under your control that you are applying. There are going to be some things that are not within your control, and just
Right.
trusting that it's going to be okay. It's like a whitewater rafting trip, but you are going to get to your destination at the
Thank
end.
you. Yeah, there's no informed consent in pediatric oncology, is there?
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
It's
okay,
like,
and
yeah.
we're all the way in maintenance. We have about 11 months left. We've really done this. And is it fair to say, like, can you guys just look back and recall, like in DI, delayed intensification should have been the hardest part. He went back to school because his counts were normal.
Wow.
He's never had a blood transfusion because we've kept his levels high with organ meat and all kinds of stuff. But
Yeah.
can we keep pushing? Is it fair to say, listen, he hasn't crashed once. Why would he crash now in maintenance?
Yeah.
We're afraid to push too hard because, like
Yeah.
you said, there are threats if you do.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, no, I would say the way is typically, I would say you bring it up once and see what response you get, and then you can step back, because
Okay.
you don't want to push too hard because you don't want to become the enemy, right?
No,
And some of it is genuine concern and some of it is egotism, but regardless of which side it lays on, you just don't want to become the enemy. So I think you guys, sounds like you guys have done a great job so far. I would just say
thank
keep
you.
that up. Yeah.
We've followed you guys all along. Thank you for everything you share. I haven't been on a call yet, but we've learned so much. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you, Shelley, for that question. Is there anyone else? We want to make sure that we're just reaching you and your home and your needs at this moment. Mhm.
Thanks for coming on, Dr. Penick. I really appreciate this. I mean, I'm always learning, different stuff. Definitely the binders. I mean, I go down every rabbit hole there is, you know. My son is out of treatment and he's healing. He was diagnosed with Burkitt's lymphoma, and everything that we could do, we did. Our oncologists, I mean, John, struggled but thrived through it. And so now it's just, now that he's doing good, you would think that I could relax, but I can't.
Mm.
So is there something like that I should be focusing on, like building his immune system? Because I'm just like, why are you coughing? What's going on? Like, What is that? You know, how do you feel?
Yeah. He's done with treatment now, you're saying? Okay, so he's in remission.
Since
So
August, yes.
I actually grabbed a couple of books. This one might be worth looking into, written by Pamela McDougall. I apologize because it got wet, so it's kind of crumpled. But Pamela McDougall is the author. She's an amazing naturopath who she decided not to get her certification so she could do this work without retribution. But this book is about Dr. William Kelly and his enzyme protocol. The reason I'm throwing this out there is because you can get these through the company professional formulas. You do have to have a doctor who has an account with them. I do, but I don't know if you can order them direct. So if for some reason you did want, like I'm saying, you should probably read it first and see if it's something you want to look more into. In general, I think it's like 6 tablets of the kind. It's basically high dose chymotrypsin, which is it's a powerful degrader of cancer cells, tumor cells, and so it's an excellent thing for all of us who are healthy to break down cellular debris, plaques that's building up, right? So it has many different benefits. But it also is an excellent, after the fact, I think it's a lot easier to use. For people who are on the treatment protocol, it is very difficult, in my opinion, because the amount that you have to take is massive. But when you're in the post stages, it's excellent because I think you only need to take like 6 a day, like 2, 3 times a day. And that's one. There are other methods. That's one method. I mentioned the Enox 2 protein is another. It's a little bit more expensive to go that route, but you would also take 2 capsules 3 times a day of that one. There's just it's pricier and it's a little bit harder to get. But I could also, if you wanted to look into that, that's another one that I could help you get set up with at this point. I don't know down the road how much I would be able to help you, but I want to try to get a Rolodex of people who have access to these things so that I can refer out and say, hey, this person can help you, this person can help you. Like if I can help like if I can help Season be able to provide it, then we'll set it up so that she can send it to you guys. So it's just some of these things are very protected because of the way it is. So they want certain credentials. So eventually maybe we'll have, like I said, like a list of practitioners that you can reach out to help prescribe or recommend or get you access to something like that. So
Love
Yeah.
dreaming with you guys and seeing where this could potentially go. And like our kids need it so much. Our moms and dads need this support for our kids. So we're dreaming with you, Dr. Penick. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us tonight. And we look forward to hearing more information on your podcasts, and you can follow him on Instagram. But if there's no more questions, we're going to say goodnight to Dr. Penick. Unless you want to stay for the announcement, you know.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me
Thank you
on.
for being here. We so appreciate you.
Take care.
So
Yes,
much
yes.
information, so much great stuff.
It's been amazing. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, guys, well, we are going to wrap up. Does anybody have any guesses? Come off mute. Does anybody have any ideas where you think we're all moving to? Charles, you can't answer. You already know.
Sheesh.
Anybody? No guesses? Okay, well, there's actually like 2 layers to this secret. The first one, Season's announcing on Saturday, and then I think the other one's coming later in the month. But we are going to plant roots. The Johnsons are, and then kick cancer. I wish I was going with them from Phoenix, but sadly, I'll hopefully be following in the years to come. But we are relocating to San Diego, California, which is such a blessing and such an answer to so many prayers. And I am just amazed at how God works. But we had a really big event there in September that was so successful. And it just felt like the community there rallied around what we were doing. Kicker constantly was like, I want to live here. Mom, can we live here? Like the whole time we were there, he like didn't have shoes on and was like, this is where we have to go. And then an opportunity came up for Season and her family to relocate there, which is just super exciting. And what's even weirder is the place that they're landing is Solana Beach. And the gal that we just hired to help us with Kick Cancer lives 3 miles from Solana Beach. So it is just, so we're actually going to have a headquarters there. It'll be great. We can get all the stuff out of my garage.
Kid
For
Cancer
Kid
has
Cancer.
never
Yes.
had a headquarters,
Nope.
unless of course you want to call Cheyenne's house a
Yes, I guess
headquarters,
Cheyenne's the closest one.
where our kits were boxed with,
Yes.
but it's literally out of someone's home that,
And that actually is going to stay there because that is like Cheyenne's baby.
oh yeah.
But we will have kits at the location in San Diego. We're going to do some of these Thrive Talks live from the location in San Diego, which we'll give you more info on later. But I'm just really excited because although we serve nationwide and we have an amazing community within the Kit Cancer family, we've never really had one place to call home. And it definitely has shown mainly in donations, because it's hard. You call businesses and they're like, well, we would love what you guys are doing, but we just give locally, or we support nonprofits that are local. So I'm really excited about being able to continue to serve nationwide, but also to be able to plant some roots and see what we can get going in the momentum that we can build within the San Diego community. And there's so many businesses and I mean, big name companies that are in the San Diego market, specifically up in like North County and Oceanside and stuff, that give back to a lot of organizations like us. So I just feel like the Lord has led us here. I am so excited to see what he is going to do. I'm excited for our new Kit Cancer employee, to get to know Season and all that she brings to the table. So it's very cool.
Well, I'm gonna just say that I'm a little mad because I just left California. So whatever. Now you come to California.
Oh, I know,
Um,
right?
But
Sorry.
there's definitely, I know, I have a lot of family connections and cancer families out there that I can direct that way. So I'm really
Yes.
excited about this. Is anybody on this call in California? No, no.
Mhm. Well, now you can come visit.
We're still
Sunny,
here for you.
sunny Solana Beach.
We're online. Come visit.
Yes.
Yes.
But we've got, and it's funny because we've got a lot of events already in the works for 2025 that happen to be in Southern California. So this is just all the stars are aligning. So more to come on that. Season's big reveal will happen later this month. But yeah, you guys can catch us. So our May talk will be live from San Diego. Next month, we are going to have the owner and CEO of Pluck with us. So if those of you who aren't familiar with Pluck, maybe I don't even know how to describe it. It's amazing. It's like a seasoning that I put on everything, but it's made of all organ meats. And it's so funny because like I'll sprinkle it on my kids' food and they're like, this is amazing. And I'm like, if you only knew, if you only knew what it actually was. But I don't tell them that part. But it's so great. And it's a great way, especially for kids, to be able to get that, those organ meats in them if they won't take pills or eat liver or tongue, which
Yes.
my kids would not. So anyways, those are all the things. So we will keep you guys updated, but we just really appreciate you guys continuing to support these talks, and hopefully we'll gain even more support. We're going to be doing a lot of outreach to some of the oncology floors within the San Diego market. So there'll be more faces on these calls soon. But yeah, we just appreciate you guys. And Dr. Penick, again, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you too.
Yes. Thank you
And you
guys.
too, Shan, always for being here, spending your evening with us. All right, we will see you guys next month.
Have a
Take
good
care.
night.
Take care.